So we're going to discuss this time functions and relations. Are you able to watch the video clips on sets, and set theory?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, bale, appeal na siya sa inyong exam, ha? Katong sets. So, this time we're going to discuss about functions and relations. So, what is a function here? Suppose that each student in Math 104 D4 class is assigned a number from the set 1 up to 39. Because in my list, there are supposed to be 39 of you. Suppose that number 1 is for Abdul. Number 2 is for Abueme. 3 is for Aguilar. 39 and down the line, no, then 39 is for Villamor. We call this assignment of numbers to be your function. This is an example of a function. So functions are specified in many different ways. Sometimes we even explicitly state assignments as in this figure 1. Ito. So these are your assigned numbers. Abdul, camera is number 1, number 2 for Abueme, number 3 for Aguilar, 4 for Alamban, 5 for Amanola, 6 for Anhao, Aziz, Junaim is 7, and down the line. No? What are other examples of functions? Can you still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So other examples, okay. Other examples
Yes,
of
ma'am.
functions would be the following. F of x equals 2x plus 3. That's another example of a function. And we can rewrite a function as f of x is equal to y, where you have f, x is mapped to y. So we call also your functions as mappings or transformation. So for the definition here, it says a function f from x to y is an assignment of element from x to y such that to each x element of x, there is a unique y element of y. Anong ibig sabihin niya? So, ang tawag dun sa first set is your domain, yung x. Ang tawag sa set where it is mapped is your codomain. Set y is your codomain. Those values on x which has a mapping to y is what we call your range. And the value x is called your pre-image, and the value y is called your image of x. So we say that a function from x to y, f maps x to y. Let's take a look at the following definition. We also have what we call the relation from a set x to a set y is a rule that assigns to each element of x at least one element y. So notice that the difference between relation in your function is that for a function, there is a unique y. There is, to each x, there's only one element of y. So unique yung mapping. Whereas for a relation, at least one element. When say at least one, pwede dalawa, di ba? Pwede isa, kasi at least one. So let us take a look at the following notations. Your functions are denoted by f, g, h, or x is your domain, and denoted by d sub f. Your range is denoted by r sub f. So we have a function from x to y, x, a function from x to y. Pwede ito ang pagkasulat niya, or pwede rin ganito, no? Nandito sa taas yung f. So these are used to indicate function from a set x to a set y. And we denote the value for your range as this. R sub f, equals the set y element of y such that, this is read as such that, y equals f of x for some x, this is read as element of x. Okay? Kung nag-watch kayo ng mga videos about sets, then you will know that this is actually a set notation. Ito, itong race niya. So how does it look like? if you take a look at this function you have, asan dito ang function? Asan ang relation? The mapping on this figure describes a relation for the first mapping, and this one describes a function. Why? On the first set here, x has elements 0, 1, negative 1, 2, 2. Okay? Remember that, oops, wait for a while. Nawala siya. Okay. Remember that if it is a relation, to each x element of x, there is at least
Nawala imong tingog, ma'am.
hello class. Nawala na po ang internet. Asa ko dapit nawala. Can you hear me now? What part?
Yes, ma'am.
What part were you not able
Yes,
to
ma'am.
hear?
Ma'am.
Nawala na po ang internet. Asan ito kung? Where's my eyeglasses?
Dito nawala nga part, ma'am, sa pag-discuss nimo sa diagram sa range of sa relation
Okay,
of sa
so-
function.
Let us go back to that part. Naka-present pa rin ba ako? Naka-present pa rin. Wala na. And one. Kung mawala pa rin for the nth time, then I just have to record na lang siguro kasi medyo mahaba ito. So, dito na ako eh. Dito tayo ha. So, from here, this one. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
So, from current slide. Okay,
Yes,
this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have here the mapping. The mapping from x to y. You take a look at the mapping from x to y. You have, what are the elements of x? What is the domain? Anyone? What are their domains? Anong domain dito? Okay, wala na naman nag-sound. X. What are the elements? I hope you already had watched the video
0,
clips
1,
and
negative
steps.
1, 2, and negative 2, ma'am.
Oh, very good. Okay, so the elements of x, which is called the domain, are 0, 1, negative 1, 2, and negative 2. And the elements of y, which are supposed to be your codomain, are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, in this case also, the elements of x are 0, 1, negative 1, 2, negative 2, and similarly, your codomain is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you say function, we define the function such that to each x element of x, there is a unique y element of y. So if you take a look at this mapping here, notice that for 0, it is mapped to 0. So there is a unique y. That's all right. But for 1 here, 1 is mapped to 0, and also it is mapped to 1. Okay? So this makes it not a function. For it to be a function, it should be to each x element of x, sorry, there should be a unique y element of y. So it is now a relation. How about the other one? If you take a look at this one, we say that this is a function. Why? If you take a look at all the elements of x here, to each x element of x, there is a unique y. 0 is mapped to 0, no other mappings. 1 is mapped into 1, no other mappings. Negative 1 is mapped to 1, wala nang iba. 1 lang talaga. 2 is mapped to 4, negative 2 is mapped to 4. You just consider that to each x element of x, there is a unique y element of y. So, bale, ang i-consider nyo itong first part. Kada isa daw nito, there is a unique y. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If in case you forget, you associate the word function to faithful. F, associate na lang niya sa faithful. Balik kani sila, kani mga excess diri, faithful ni sila. Kaya nga no, ang 0, ang iyang paris, 0 lang, wala na ilahi. Si 1, ang iyang paris kay si 1 lagi, wala na ilahi. So negative 1, ang iyang paris kay si 1 lang. So si 2, si 4 lang, si negative 2, si 4. Do not think about this other side. Basta consider nyo, for it to be a function, kaning excess nyo should have a unique y element of y. So, unique ra yun. This one, if you take a look, nga nang dili siya na function, kay kaning x diri, kaning si 1 diri, ang iyang paris kay 0, then nagparis po siya og 1. Okay? So, kaning si 1 diri, dili siya faithful. So, relation lang. Kinahanglan, for it to be a function, it should be a unique y element. Ang iyang mga paris, kaning mga paris ani diri is supposed to be unique. Okay? So let's take a look at the domain and range. How about the domain and range? If you take a look at this one, the domain here is 0, 1, negative 1, 2, negative 2. And it is illustrated by D sub F. As for the range, 0, 1, 4. Okay? Ang range, katong na ay pre-image. Ang pre-image kay kani siya, kani ang mga pre-image. Kaning na diri, you call them image. So the image of 0 is 0, the image of 1 is 1, the image of negative 1 is 1, the image of 2 is 4, and the image of negative 2 is 4. So ang tawag sa tanan nga elements sa Y are your codomain. So these are your codomain, these are your domain, but the image are only, elements of the image is 0, 1, and 4. Similarly, you have 0, 1, and 4. Okay? But it is possible that your codomain, which is your Y, and your range are equal. And in that case, you actually have what we call your onto function. Okay? So, tingnan muna natin itong mapping na to. Next one. So, which of the mappings here is a function based on the definition earlier? Anyone?
G, ma'am.
Okay. What makes F not a function?
Dili siya faithful, ma'am.
No,
take a bit,
hindi siya
ma'am.
faithful. Take a bit. Asa man? Si 1, duha ka ba yung pares? 1
Yes.
and negative 1. Si 4, about 4. Kanipod, na?
Si 2
Ang
negative.
tawag aning, yes. Pero dili na siya pwede gamiton nga definition sa ano ha? Sa inyong description. Kana siya ako lang nagigamit so that you will understand. Okay? Also definition sa function. For each, we have a mapping from x to y such that to each x element of x, there is a unique y element of y. Ano siya ang definition? Kato, ipasabot lang na ako ang gamit na word of faithful para masabot niyo. Hindi niyo pwede isuti sa definition ninyo na, ang function kay faithful manggod siya. No, that's not the correct definition. I just made use of that analogy so that you'll be able to understand the word function. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sige, clear ha? So if you take a look at this, what are the elements of the range? Dire. Ang saan range dire? Range of G. Kanitanan. Muna yung sulti na ako ganina, it's possible that your codomain is equal to your range. Kay tanan na isa pares, di ba? In fact, this is what you call your one-to-one and onto function. So one-to-one and onto function, we're going to define that one later on. So this is one-to-one kay isa-isa ang pares. This is onto kay nahurot tanan ang inyong codomain. Equal siya gapon sa range. So kani, ang F ninyo kay dili siya function because ang 1 diri wala siya, ang 1 diri kay naa siya duha ka assignment. No? 1 is assigned to 1, then it's also assigned to negative 1. Let's take a look on the next one. So tabular description of function stations are also possible. So instead of mappings, you can also have, say, when x, you have element x, which is supposed to be your element of your domain, and your y here are y here is supposed to be your range. Kani siya ang range, no? So 0 is mapped to 0, 1 is mapped to 0, 1 is mapped to 1. So this is a relation from x to y, and this one is a function from x to y. So these are actually mappings in figure 2. So mappings in tables 3.1 and 3.2 are the mappings in figure 2. Ano yung figure 2 natin? Para makita niyo. In figure 2 natin. Ito. 0 to 0, 1 to 1, negative 1 to 1, 2 to 4, negative 2 to 4. So, pwede siya matabulate, no? Pwede ba siya masulat? So, let us take a look at this one. Tabular description. Sometimes, the function is also defined as this. Function equals the set of ordered pairs x, y, element of x plus y is equal to f of x. So, associated with the function f. A relation from a set x to a set y is a subset of x cross y. If you studied your set theory, then you would know what is your x cross y. X cross y is your Cartesian product. So what is x cross y? X cross y would be the elements xy such that x is an element of the order of the set x and y is an element of your y. So function f from a set x to a set y is a relation from x to y for which no two ordered pairs in f have the same first components. So for it to be a function, dapat walang ordered pairs na pareho ang first element. So pwede man gamitin ang ordered pair. So pag makita ninyo na pareho ang first element niya, dito sa dili na siya faithful. Diba? Kay si x, napares na po siya sa y. Then, sunod x, napares na po siya, for example, sa y sub 1. So, na ay ordered pair nga, pareho ang first element, dili ni siya function. It makes it a relation. Describe the relations in example 1, a set of ordered pairs. So, this is our example 1, correct? So, sa set of ordered pair, you will now have f is 0, 0, 1, 1. So 1 is paired into 1. 1 is paired into negative 1. 4 is paired into 2. And 4 is paired into negative 2. So yun na ni itsura. For the function g, kaniman tong example 1. 0 is mapped to 0. 1 is mapped to 1. Negative 1 is mapped to negative 1. Mani siya. Then 2 is mapped to 4. And negative 2 is mapped to negative 4. Okay? So you should be able to rewrite your function, if it is in terms of a mapping, you should be able to rewrite it in terms of ordered pair, and you should also be able to rewrite it in terms of a table. So kung i-table ni siya, ang sa itsura, ang x diri, then you will have your y here, then x 0, up to 0, then sa table na 1, up to 1, 1, negative 1, and down the line. Okay? Oh, this one, most of the time, your functions are defined in terms of equations. So, tingnan na siya. Y equals x squared plus 3. This is an example of an equation. So, the domain of f is the set x squared plus 3 where x is an element of your, kani siya, ang ibig sabihin yan, real number. So, x is an element of your real number. Determine if the given set defines a function or a relation only. So, this will be your assignment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, how do we test? We have what we call your vertical line test for functions. So, the graph of function f, r to r, intersects a given vertical line in r squared at most once. So, if you have this, you take a look, it says that you can make use of your vertical line test If you draw a vertical line and it passes only at one point, then it is a function. It says so at most once. Is that clear? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
So, kani siya, pag draw niya vertical line, mag-touch lang siya at one point. That's why this one is a function. Pag mag-draw mo vertical line, ani, mag-touch siya at one point, it is a function. Pero this one is not a function because when you draw a vertical line, notice na daghan kay points siyang agihan. Similarly, kani, 2 points siyang agihan. Okay? So, ang ngunit pinakasayon nga mag-determine kung function or relation siya. Pero, mag-sketch man pod mo kung given an equation. Pero kung given ang drawing, dali na kayo i-identify. Okay? So, you should know this. Next would be what we call your sum and products of functions. 1 through 40 na. Do you have a class? Or wala? Kaya mag-continue lang ko kung wala may klase. Ang akong isa ka klase kay, sige manggod ka wala ang internet. That's why I decided in my other class na recorded ang ilahang lecture. Pero sa inyo, kay mag-exam ang good mo, that's why nag-require good ko nga mag-meet ta today para ma-explain ko na ko ang procedure sa inyong exam. Do you have a class after the after 1:30? Hello? Hello, class. Can you still hear me?
Wala nga.
Wala. So, okay lang sa inyo. I-continue na ako. Tiwason lang na ako ning kanila nga topic para appeal man gud ni sa exam ninyo. Okay lang? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have to finish. Otherwise, pwede man gyapon ako i-stop pero recording na ang inyo ha. Mas sayon ba maminaw pag live ang discussion. Okay? Pero pag diligid mo ko, magsikaw walang internet, mag-recording yun taani. Let's see. Let F1 and F2 be functions from A to R. Then F1 plus F2 and F1 times F2 are also functions from A to R defined for all x elements of A. By, so ang function, pag i-adaw nimo, basta pare sila function, ang so niya kay kani, f sub 1x plus f sub 2x, function lang siya gyapon. Pag i-add. Pag i-multiply mong duha ka function, f1 times f2x, this is the definition. Let's have an example. Let the function 1 be equal to x squared. Kaning nga function ng itsura ani is a parabola which opens upward. Kana yun ani, parabola which opens upward. Kaning nga function is actually a parabola which opens downward. Yun ani, downward. Yun sa man ako napagkabalo. Algebra na siya nga part. Dapat na ana kamo sa inyuhang senior high algebra, no? Kung wala pa mo yung algebra, kung dili mo nyo na-learn ni, then you have to review back your algebra so that you'll be able to identify the graphs. Okay? Let's take a look at F1 plus F2. What is F1 plus F2? F sub 1x plus F sub 2x. Our first function is x squared. So x squared plus our second function is x minus x squared. So meaning to say, ang function 1 plus function 2 is now x squared, which is your function 1, plus x minus x squared, which is your function 2. Pag i-add sila, x squared minus x squared, di ba? Kaya proceed by plus sign man. So, the same ang sign gyapon. Plus x, kani, x squared. Understood man na 1x squared minus 1x squared. Pila yun mabilin? 1x squared minus 1x squared. Pila naman ka x squared mabilin? Anyone? Hello?
Cancel out naman natin naman.
Ma-cancel out. Kahit
Wala
one?
na, ma'am.
Wala na. Very good. Wala na. So, mabilin x na lang. That's why you have x here. Then, when you multiply x squared times the quantity x minus x squared, that becomes x cubed. What do you do with exponent? You add, diba? So, then x squared minus x squared, you will have x to the fourth. So, the product of f1 and f2 is x cubed minus x to the fourth. So that's for addition and multiplication of functions. Now we have what we call your floor and ceiling functions and their graphs. For the floor function assigns to the real number x the largest integer that is less than or equal to the value x. So may kag floor function, ano siya? The largest integer that is less than or equal to the 2x. For the ceiling function, so itsura sa floor function kay kani. Manani ang iyang notation, no? Floor, nasa ubos ang iyang kaning sign niya ni. Then ang ceiling function kay ingon ani. Nasa taas pod. So, you have ang ceiling function assigns to the real number x the smallest integer that is greater than or equal to x. So, pag may kag ceiling assigns the real number the smallest integer that is greater than or equal to x. Greater than, ha? Or equal to x. Smallest siya, pero greater than or equal to x. So, the floor function is also called the greatest integer function because of this definition. Okay, let's see. Example. What is the floor function of 1/2? Unsa man ang tapad sa 1/2? Ang 1/2, if we have this, di ba, na kay 0 diha, na kay 0, then 1/2 dayon, then 1. Unsa nga integer man ang pag floor gani less than or equal to, di ba? Greatest integer nga mas gamay aning 1/2, which is 0. Pero pag mayong kag ceiling function, pag ceiling na pod, unsa man ang pinakagamay nga integer na mas dako sa 1/2, which is 1. About negative 1/2. Pag negative 1/2, pag naanapod na diri, no? This is supposed to be your floor. So, unsay pinakadako here, if you take a look, tingnan natin yung definition para makita niyo. Floor function, largest, pinakadako, that is less than or equal to x ng floor function. Yan. Largest that is less than or equal to x. Okay. So, ang largest which is less or equal to negative 1/2 is negative 1. For negative 1/2, ang floor na pod is supposed to be, definition na pod na, ay, asa na yan ang definition? It says here, you have for a ceiling function, the smallest integer that is greater than or equal to x. So, 3.1. Pag floor function, 3.1, ang iyahang floor function sa 3.1 is 3. Ang ceiling function is 4. Katong mas dako, no? Pag ceiling, tanaw na lang yung mas dako sa iya. Minimum, pero mas dako. Ang 7 na gyapon. Ang ceiling sa 7, kay 7 na gyapon. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The graph of the floor function is given by the following. This one. This is supposed to be this one. Ang floor is A. So, ang floor kay naa diri sa ubos. Ano, no? Di kay klaro diri. Dapat ano na siya? Kana X. So, pag floor function, ini ani yang itsura. Nga naman, you have from these values here. Ang 1/2, di ba kaniman ang 1/2 yan. So, if that's 1/2, you have, let's see, felt it. Wala yung pencil, pero sige na lang. Ito ang 1/2 ninyo. 1/2, floor function ng 1/2 is actually equal to 0. Why 0? All the values, so ang 1/2 na diri yung 1/2. Yan. All the values which is supposed to be less than integer values, ha? Or equal to that value. 1/2 man, So, kaning mga mas gamay sa 1. Kaning man ang pinakato ko ang 1. Pero ang integer value niya, so you have your 0. How about the ceiling function of 1/2? Kung nakadiri ang 1/2 nimo, ang pinakadako na pod nga value niya na dili mula pa sa 1/2 is 1. Pinakamadako na integer. So that's why you have this value here. Kaning padulong diha. Kanina pod, if you take a look at negative 1/2, nasa man na bilong ang negative 1/2, ang ceiling, ang floor function. Negative 1/2 kay naaman diri, no? Okay. Asa man ang mas gamay value. Diba negative 1. So, appeal ang negative 1. So, tanang nga value diri, ang iyahang floor function is, kumana kaning yung drawing. Appeal ang 0, padulong diha. We call that your step function also. Ang floor and ceiling functions are also called step functions. So these are the properties for your floor and ceiling function. If you have floor function of x, your floor function for x is equal to n if and only if x is less than n plus 1 but greater than or equal to n. Muna yung definition. Ang ceiling function if n minus 1 is less than x, less than or equal to n. Again, you have your floor function n if and only if x minus 1 is less than n, less than or equal to x, and down the line. So from this property, then you can take the value. So for example, let's see, let's have the following. Data stored on a computer disk or transmitted over a data network are usually represented as string of bytes. Each byte is made up of 8 bits. How many bytes are required to encode 100 bits of data? Diba kay whole number man ang mga values? Okay? So to determine the number of bytes needed, we determine the smallest integer that is at least as large as the quotient when 100 is divided by 8. So we will now have 100, greatest integer, 100 divided by 8, which is 12.5. Pero di ba ang inyong ano kay wala man tayong half na byte. So what you have here, i-round off the yon, ang 12.5, into the greatest integer, ceiling function, no? Which is equal to 13. Nakuha? So ang ceiling function sa 12.5 is 13. Example 2. In asynchronous transfer mode ATM, a communications protocol used on backbone networks, data are organized into cells of 53 bytes. How many ATM cells can be transmitted in 1 minute over a connection that transmits data at the rate of 500 kilobits per second? So in 1 minute kay pila ka seconds man na? 60, di ba? So, kaya na yun man siya nga can be transmitted in 1 minute. So, 60 seconds. So, you have 500,000 times 60 equals 30. Ayan. 00000 bits. So, each ATM cell is 53 bytes long. Ano yun? Given man na 53 bytes. Which means that is 53 times 8. Which is equal to 424 bits long. But remember ang question, how many ATM cells can be transmitted in 1 minute over a connection that transmits a data of this one? So meaning to say, you now have, so to determine that, we determine the largest integer not exceeding the quotient. 130, 00000 is divided by 424. So you divide by 424, the answer is this one. Meaning to say, this number can be transmitted in 1 minute over 500 kilobit per second connection. Per second man yung connection. Kaya yung kanina, 1 minute man nakabutang, atong butang ito in terms of seconds, which is 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. A function f is said to be one-to-one or an injection if and only if f of a is equal to f of b implies that a is equal to b for all a, b in the domain of f. Are you still with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Sige, baka naputol naman yung net natin. A function is said to be injective if it is one-to-one. So, ganina, di ba, nag-define na taog function. Tapos, if you remember, I said, kanina function, this is one-to-one. Katong isa-isa lang iyang pares. Na? Now, this one, this is how it is defined properly. If f of a is equal to f of b, implies that a is equal to b. So, if it is injective, then it is actually one-to-one. Another word for one-to-one is injective. Note that the function f is one-to-one if and only if. So, if you make use of the contrapositive na statement, then this is the statement. If and only if f of a not equal to f of b implies a, or whenever a is not equal to b. Kanima nang iyang definition. If f of a is equal to f of b implies that a is equal to b. So, pag kuwaon na to ang iyang contrapositive ani, what do? You will now have f of a not equal to f of b whenever a is not equal to b. Kasi a not equal to b implies f of a is not equal to f of b. Ano yung contrapositive? We can express that f is one-to-one using the following. For all, notation is for all. For all a and for all b, f of a equals f of b, f of a equals f of b, implies a is equal to b. Or equivalently, this is the contrapositive. Kanigikan dire a not equal to b implies f of a not equal to f of b. Where the universe of this course is the domain of the function. For example, this one, this function is one-to-one. Why? It takes on different values at the four elements of its domain. Unsay domain ani nga set kani? A, B, C, D. Unsay iyahang codomain? If anyone, if you understood the first part kanina, what's the codomain?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Very good. And what is the range?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mali.
3, 4, 5.
1, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
1, 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
1, 3, 4, 5.
1, 3, 4.
So, ang codomain is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pero ang range is 1, 3, 4, and 5 only. Okay? Kasi ang range? Katong nalay pares. Diri. Although this function is one-to-one, this is not on-to. Kaya wala man nahurot ang inyuhang codomain. So, one-to-one siya, pero dili siya on-to. Kaya ang iyang codomain is not equal to its range. Okay? So, nasabtan na ang definition. Determine whether the function f of x equal to x squared from the set of integers to the set is one-to-one. Ang sa itsura ng f of x equals x squared. Diba, naiunta nga, ato siya is actually a parabola which opens upward. Ano ang itsura niya. Pero pagkuha ninyo in terms of drawing ninyo, in terms of table, may mo siya, when x is 0, f of x is 0. When x is 1, f of x is 1. When x is negative 1, f of x is also equal to 1. Notice na, si 1 o si negative 1, pareho, 1 is actually equal to, ang iyang image kay 1. Pero ang 1 is not equal to negative 1. Correct? So, meaning to say, domain is, okay, the function f with its domain restricted to C plus is one-to-one, pero that is only if we try to restrict. Pero kung dili nyo i-restrict, what will happen? Dili siya one-to-one. F of x equals x squared is not one-to-one. Kaya si f of 1 is equal to f of negative 1, which is equal to 1. Kung i-drawing na ninyo, makita man na ninyo, I don't have my pen kasi na pang sulat na itong nandito lang. Mahirap isulat ang I'm using kasi another laptop. Diba? Bali ang ano-an na dili siya one-to-one tungod kay let's see. Kunyari, si 1, ang pares ni 1 kay si i-ordered pen na to 1. Gamitan lang na ko 1. Maglisod ko kay wala ko pen, wala penning ano. Kani si 1 ang pares niya kay si 1, di ba? Then pag naapod kay kani ordered pen na to ay tanang na to. Si 1 pag i-square nimo f of 1 ang pares na kay si 1 si negative 1 ang pares na kay si 1 yap. So function siya pero notice na kaning si 1 gani nga diri sa pikas si 1 diri. Pareho ang ilang ano negative 1 ug 1. Pero function siya kay sa y man na siya nabilong. Kanya na una lang nako para makita ninyo. Oops. Kani. Kunyari, ang ilamat niya diri 1. Pares ni 1. Pag i-square ni mo 1. Diba? Si 0. Si 0. Ang pares ni 0. Pag isulod ni mo diri f of 0. 0 gyapon. Okay? Wala problema. Paano yung mahirap kasi 1. Wala akong ballpen. 1, 2, 1. Are you still with me? Maklaro ninyo? Si negative 1, pares si negative 1 kay yung pares. I-square ninyo 1 ragyapo. So let's make it not 1 to 1. Kay si 1, si negative 1, si 1 gihapon yung pares. Kani pareho 1. Okay? C. Determine whether f of x equals x plus 1 from the set of real numbers is 1 to 1. The function f of x equal to x plus 1 is 1 to 1 function. Kani, 1 to 1 siya. Ano man? Natay x, dali na nakatanaw na pod. Natay y. Oops, yan. So, if we have 1 here, ang y man ninyo kay x plus 1, di ba? X plus 1. Plus yan ha. I'm using hindi maklaro. Ay, magaling laptop. Wala. So, 1 is mapped to 2. 2, di ba? Then, ang 2, kung sa may pares ni 2 karon, kung sa pares ni 2, based on the definition, asa man siya mapares? Kay? Sa man ang f of x niya? Anyone? Ha?
3, ma'am.
Yes, very good. So, nasabtan ninyo, 3. 2 man siya. Kay kada isa ani, ang iyang pares, kay isa lang. Diba? Si 1, si 2 lang. Si 2, si 3 lang. Wala na ilahi. So, 1 to 1 gid na. Kada isa. F of x, x plus 1 is a 1 to 1 function. Let us have another one. That's another. Let's see. Nag-end ako dili dapit kanina.
Dili siya ulit na.
Depende sa inyohang kaning dire. Dapit dire. Kung mahurot na ninyong real number. Hindi siya maunto kay how about ang 0? Nabatay 0? Tanawan niyo kung nabay pares ang 0. For each x element of x, dapat na siya pares. Ang 0, pag 0 dire, what is 0? Kasi pares niya pag 0.
1.
Kasi pre-image pag 0. Pag 0 dire, ang pre-image niya kay negative 1. So, maunto siya basta real number ang imuhang. Depende sa imong codomain nga ibutang. Ha? So, maunto siya kung equal ang imuhang codomain sa imuhang range. Dapat equal sila. So, kung domain nimo kay set of real numbers, ang imuhang then ang imuhang codomain is set of real numbers, mahurot ba siya? Maunto na siya. Kaya naman tanan siya ay pre-image sa set of real numbers. Dapat naaraman siya pre-image sa set of real numbers.